Okay, hey Tube. This is going to be quite a lengthy video on. I'm going to be sort of comparing the brand new 3DS Extra Large from Nintendo with Sony's PS Vita and their old PlayStation Portable. So, to start with, the first thing I noticed with the 3DS is it's got a huge battery life. This is the XL one. In terms of actual gameplay, it lasted a good 6 to 8 hours of a mixture between 3DS games, DS games, web browsing, and video playing. So it's a much better battery life than the 3 to 5 hours you would expect on this. So it's a really big battery, and obviously they do have a lot of room to put that in, and they've done it well. It's a big improvement over the original 3DS. And so now what we'll do is we'll just sort of give you a quick gameplay demo. So on the PS Vita here, what I have is Mod Nation Racers, the demo of it. I'm just gonna sort of run it for you so you can see what it looks like and how it plays. You'll notice it's not running at the highest frame rate. Nothing special about the soundtrack. The game doesn't have a whole lot of character. It's just kind of in my opinion, a very bland racing title. Especially when you compare it to Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS Extra Large. Let's jump into that. So the 3DS has a much well, the screen it's got a lower resolution than the PS Vita, but it actually still has to output at 800 by 240 due to the 3D effect, so it basically has to reproduce the same image twice. But if you've not seen gameplay from the 3DS, you'll be able to tell straight away that it's a big jump above the original DS. The actual hardware is about 4 or 5 times as powerful as that of the original DS. But you would be surprised to find out that the PS Vita's hardware, on a very general sort of comparison, which is not totally fair, but it's about 10 times the power of the 3DS's hardware. The PS Vita, it can produce almost similar quality to the PS3, theoretically. But the thing is, and the thing which surprises me, is, even though it's got a lower resolution, nowhere near as powerful, this 3DS game, Mario Kart 7, is a far better game, even visually, than Mod Nation Racers. And Nintendo tend to have, they have a habit of being very good at optimizing games with maybe not the best hardware, like with the Wii. They made some very, very decent games on that platform, even though it was a very weak platform. And they tend to make the most of what they have, maybe a bit more than Sony. So if you noticed, Mod Nation Racers was struggling at 30 frames per second. There were large dips. It really wasn't doing good. And basically, the Mario Kart 7 will run at literally a solid 60 frames per second, and it looks like it's a very charming game. It's got a very nice character to it. It's very joyful, it's playful, it's kind of inviting, and the characters are all very happy, and it's quite uplifting, really. So I suppose that's more to do with the game than the console itself, but that's actually, those two games that I just showed you kind of demonstrate what my overall impression of the system is. So the PS Vita, really powerful hardware, great potential, but the actual software on it really is just not up to the same standard of the 3DS. And I've only had the 3DS a day or two, but I've just been so impressed with the optimization and the actual support for the device. On top of that, you know, the 3DS library is, you know, it's expanding really quickly. You know, there's, you know, big games like Monster Hunter coming out, which is going to sell loads of units. I mean, already the 3DS sales are about 4 times that of the Vitas, and it's probably because they had quite a large price cut, actually, not so long ago. But basically, yeah, 3DS is doing a lot better than the PS Vita, even though the original 3DSs did get a lot of returns because of eye strain, and apparently they're also unsuitable for children under the age of 6. They can permanently damage your eyes or something. So, word of warning. And on that note, I will say that when you actually use a 3D effect, it's amazing and it works very well. But watch this. Sorry, turn it on. Now, there's this profound black line effect, which is when you actually get your angle right, the 3D looks very impressive. But you turn the console even an inch or so in a different direction and suddenly your 3D effect gets all messed up, you get black lines going across your screen and your image looks very blurred. So, you know, not only is it very off-putting, but it also does hurt your eyes. So, on that note, if you're not a very steady player, should I say, for want of a better way of saying that, if you feel like you can't hold a console straight, you know, you're going to really probably not use your 3D feature at all, because there are some games like the Super Mario Brothers 3D Land where it's actually a very useful feature, not just like a gimmick. But this 3D effect, and it is the same on the original 3DS and the XL, and it will it will annoy you if you can't hold the console still, and I found that problem quite irritating, especially in online games. Which, obviously, there is a very good online capability with the XL, but more on that later. So, in terms of, I mean, the actual store that's available, as we go on to the Vita, we have the PlayStation Store, and we compare it with Nintendo's eShop. One more thing about the Nintendo is it's not very good at multitasking. It's got a similar sort of software overlay as the Vita in that everything is launched with an app, but the thing with the DS is literally you can only run one thing at a time. As soon as you try to do multiple things, you have to basically close whatever it was that was previously open. Okay, so return to home, let's do this. And we'll go back to home as soon as we can. But basically, for the PS Vita side of things, there's a whole host of stuff that you can buy. There's PS Vita games, which there are a fair few of, obviously not as many as there are 3DS games, but don't forget that you've got your PSP compatibility, and there's a ton of PSP games on here. You've got your minis, you've got your PS1 classics as well, and I mean anyone who previously owned those consoles and wants to bring back old memories, or maybe someone who's just missed a game. I mean, the Final Fantasies are very popular on the PS1 side of things, so I mean you can grab them for about $7.99, just it's fairly cheap. And yeah, I think the PS Vita store, it's also very well made. So I mean, you've got your search bar, you've got your movies, you've got your PlayStation Mobile. It's all very easy to get through. You've got lots of different categories and a regular sale which is updated, say once a week or so. So you can keep checking for offers and stuff, and all the latest games will pop up here, and yeah, you can just have a look. And it does work very well. It's quick to find what you're looking for basically, and there are a lot of things that you can purchase on there, and the price is fairly decent. But as soon as you come to the 3DS, firstly you'll notice it's nowhere near as intuitive. It just doesn't have the same sort of flow to it. But on top of that, the games are very expensive considering they are portable, sort of trimmed down games. I mean, look, Legend of Zelda, $39.99, Star Fox, $39.99, Super Mario 3D Land, $39.99. So these games, even though they are maybe not full console games, you are paying the full price. This is very expensive. And I mean, you can see how many people. Look, that's got 22,138 ratings. I mean, a lot of people are downloading this kind of stuff, and you can buy physical copies for about 25 if you search for them. So I can't really see why. And the thing with a physical copy is when you're done with it, you can sell it on as well, which is what I will do. And yeah, so in terms of store, the PS Vita's definitely got the upper hand. And the one thing the Vita has got which the 3DS doesn't is trophies. Trophies is a kind of thing which, let me just turn the brightness up, which basically it's kind of, those PS3 owners will know, it's just kind of a way of making games feel a little more satisfying and rewarding, so it kind of just gives you more incentive to play your games and gives you goals and things to do in them. So now what I'll do is just bring the PSP into the mix. So here's Sony's previous console, and what I'll do is get rid of that, and from our Uncharted we will run a demo of Uncharted, which is sort of one of Sony's first kind of 3D action games, and we'll compare it with the previous generation Monster Hunter on the PlayStation Portable, which was probably the best looking PSP game that there was, along with maybe a couple of Final Fantasies such as Crisis Core. So I'll just see like kind of what the leap was between those two and how the PSP compares to the 3DS. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the PS Vita has a much higher resolution than 3DS, but you know what, when you're playing the games, you don't notice it so much. You really don't. Literally, the resolution on this screen is about triple that of this screen, and they're almost the same size. But you don't notice it because the fact that the optimization is so good on this, and also a lot of the Vita games are not actually created at the native resolution just because either the game is too demanding to run at that resolution or is not upscaled properly, so it just doesn't look right, and sort of a lot of the games are very blurry, a bit like Modern Nation Racers, etc. But I mean, Uncharted is a very good looking game, so you would be forgiven for thinking it's kind of a PS3 title. Let's just position this a bit better. Yeah. So again, as you can see, the 3DS Extra Large is huge. It is the size of both of those consoles put together, which says something. And the fact that literally I bought this for £130 off eBay, brand new, and the Vita sort of retails for about £220. So you really do have to think whether it's worth it. Okay, so here's Monster Hunter on the top, and there's Uncharted on the left, and Mario Kart just for the lols. So instantly the screen is a lot smaller on the PSP, colours are nowhere near as vivid, controls feel outdated, you have to sort of use obviously one analog stick, and obviously the games are not most optimised. But obviously, a fairly good looking game for its time. Don't forget the PSP was released back in 2005, so it's been a while. And here we have Uncharted. It feels very natural with the two analog sticks. The game actually looks gorgeous, and the camera doesn't really do it any justice. It kind of implements the touchscreen quite well, but I mean, I think this is more of an add-on just to show that Vita's functionality can be useful sometimes. It's not something that you would probably use, especially hardcore platforming fans. Yeah. There is definitely, there's a huge leap. With these two right next to each other, there's just, it's a world of difference between the PSP and the PS Vita. And it's very difficult to compare this and that, just because of the fact that, well, they're made for different audiences really. The PSP was a very hardcore multimedia device, whereas the DS was focused solely on games. And people said, well, it can't internet browse, it can't watch video, you can't watch videos on it. It didn't have a camera. It was literally a solo gaming unit. Well, with the 3DS Extra Large, you would actually be surprised how decent the web browser is, as I'll show you now. And it's not fair to say that it's only a a gaming device, because to be honest, I mean, it's not maybe as good as your laptop or anything like that, but it's a fair browser. So we'll search something, and also the keyboard on here is actually very responsive. So let's search Apple. Search. It's fairly quick. I mean, obviously, again, it's not the sharpest screen, but it does get the job done. And another useful thing is when you do a sort of scroll, you can see on the upper screen as well what it is you're looking at. You can zoom in. So maybe we go to Apple here. And it's definitely not a slouch. And even though this is a resistive touchscreen compared to a capacitive on the Vita, with the stylus it does feel very slick, and it does flow, should I say. There it is. It's very smooth. And yeah, I don't know how well it shows through, but it does work very well, this browser. It's a decent alternative, so you don't have a tablet PC, or maybe not even a laptop. You know, you can sit in the living room with this 3DS and browse your just whatever it is you want to browse. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend the eShop on here. It's a load of rubbish, to be honest. Nintendo's also built in a few little things you can do if you say don't have any games, or just a bit bored of your current games. You can take 3D photos, you can record sounds and edit them in its own inbuilt software, and you can take 3D video as well. And you know, they're a bit of fun to start with, but it's not something you can really continue to use. And it's the same with the PS Vita. They've got quite a few little apps that you can play with for a bit. They've got their Paint Park, they've got their Skype, YouTube, etc. And they've got, you know, the Near and Welcome Park and Treasure. What was it called? Treasure Park. Yeah. There's just little mini games you can play which will use the Vita's touchscreen and Near functionality, etc. And I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but the PS Vita screen is brighter than this, but it's not major. And I say again, the resolution is not a huge factor. So if you're looking for like a super sharp multimedia device, don't instantly think that the Vita is just gonna be the one for you, because I was actually surprised with the DS. It's actually very good for watching videos on and stuff. It's not obviously the same as this, but it's no slouch again. So maybe in terms of price to performance, the 3DS would have the upper hand. So I've talked about that, and it's pretty clear that PSP is outclassed. It's got no unique features when compared to both of these. So let's get rid of that. And well, if you've got to this video, you probably realise that 3DS Extra Large is a pretty big upgrade from the 3DS. You know, for about the £30 difference, you get about 90% bigger screen on the top, and then a 90% bigger screen on the bottom as well, I think. So, you know, much larger screens, you know, huge. In fact, when you first open the 3DS XL, you'll be pleasantly surprised by how big it is. You know, we'll just go on to erase just so you can see the full screen. Yeah, so on top of that you get probably an extra 2 hours worth of battery life. You get enhanced colours. The shape is sort of more easily fits around your hands, and also the texture is sort of anti-fingerprint kind of matte finish rather than the glossy 3DS fingerprint magnet. And as you can see, this device is also a lot thinner. 3DS was known as like a triple layer beast pretty much. You know, it was huge. So this is actually in a way more portable because it's more slimline. You know, it's the kind of product you'd expect Apple to come up with. It does look very sleek. And so, I mean, in terms of the Vita's own unique functionality, we've got, you know, the rear touchscreen, front and rear cameras, we've got gyro sensors, front touchscreen. So, you know, it's pretty packed full of stuff. But I'm gonna have to say that what the Vita does have over the 3DS, i.e. back touchscreen, gyro sensors, has not been used in any game very effectively to sort of make it like a must-have feature, if that makes any sense. So there's been no games which have used these features really, really well. Like, say the 3D has been used really well on the 3DS in Super Mario 3D Land. You know, or the stylus has been used very effectively for typing and that kind of thing. I don't think the Vita has been used to its full potential yet. And also I do think that it's kind of being neglected by Sony themselves. You know, it's they're kind of, even though their Vita is brand new and their PS3 is 7 or so years old, they're still releasing loads more PS3 games than they are PS Vita. They're kind of ignoring it almost. You know, the newly announced Call of Duty for Vita, it's being produced by an unknown studio who, you know, are very small, and, you know, it's not being produced by Activision or Treyarch or anything. They've kind of sidelined their own console in a way. Just because of the disappointing sales numbers, really, which is kind of their own fault because of their pricing structure. So what I'll say is, at the minute, I'm going to conclude with saying that the 3DS, especially the extra large, is a better console than the Vita, and I am by no means a fanboy. You know, I was very impressed with the Vita as well when I first sort of, it's impressive, when I first unboxed it and sort of reviewed it. I was very impressed, and I still am. It's a very impressive piece of kit, especially when you compare it to the PSP. But I think the 3DS is much more user-friendly. There's really good online possibilities. The games are just a lot more fun to play, less focused on graphics, and cramming all the Vita's sort of functionality and different alternate input methods into the game, and more focused on just having a good time. And, you know, it's just very fun and family friendly as well. And there's a lot of, I mean, fanboyism as well. It depends on whether you like what kind of games Sony has. There are a lot of exclusives which you just won't be able to get on the 3DS, and vice versa. You know, such as, you know, you're not going to be getting Mario anytime soon on that, and you're not going to be getting Ratchet and Clank anytime soon on this. It's also a matter of preference, but just my personal opinion, my 2 cents, take it or leave it, the 3DS is better at the minute. You know, it's sleek, it's powerful, it's modern, and it's got a really awesome 3D effect. You know, I'm not going to lie, when it works, it looks amazing. Library's great, and the price is really, really good for what you're getting. You wouldn't instantly assume that the 3DS actually costs less than the Vita, but it costs substantially less. You know, if you search around well enough, you can get it for almost £100 less than the PS Vita. So that pretty much concludes my sort of review and comparison. And you know, I'm just going to conclude by saying that the Vita is a great console, but I mean, it has too many ports, and the fact that it's been sidelined by Sony just under a year after its release is kind of just saying that even they've given up on their own console. So unless there's some next, you know, some huge game franchise release on the Sony, I think it's going to pretty much slide downhill. Another possible thing that could boost the sales, though, is if a hack is released. I know a lot of people are against hacks, but the only reason the PSP was so successful is that it was hacked. You know, loads of people were buying this console just to get homebrew and emulators and free downloads of their ROMs and all that kind of stuff. So again, there is potential, but for now the 3DS is the winner. So thanks for watching. Rate, subscribe, comment, like, and comment and just say sort of which one you think's better.